Sometimes, incredible stories about monsters are heard, and all we can do is to keep telling them, particularly because people need to be aware of the danger they might represent. Today, we will show you 5 creepy winged monsters that have been seen in real life. Number 5. The terrible winged creature in Nebraska. Our first story took place in the 1950s in the vicinity of Falls City, Richardson County, Nebraska. As for the witness, we know him only as John Hanks, an admitted pseudonym that the man in question chose to use to protect his real identity. But why? Well, maybe when you hear the details of his experience, you will undoubtedly realize why this man was so very determined to protect his real name from prying, inquiring eyes and ears. It's a case that was carefully investigated by several investigators, including Ray Boak and one of the world's foremost experts on bizarre, flying beasts, Ken Gerard. Even Ken finds the entire affair baffling. It was late one night, at some point in the latter part of 1956, when he came face to face with a true giant. It was a creature of 9 feet in height, one that was humanoid in shape, but which most certainly could never be termed a member of the human race. Hank's nightmarish thing had a pair of 15-foot-wide wings that, rather oddly, appeared to be made of bright, shining aluminum. Not only that, the wings appeared to be strapped to the creature, or possibly they were grafted onto its body in definitive cyborg style. If that was not nearly strange enough, Robot Birdman displayed numerous, multicolored lights that spanned the entire undersides of both wings. Perhaps one who had managed to create a portable contraption to allow people to take to the skies in amazing, novel, and previously unheard of fashion. But what about the height of that thing? There is one other critical component to the story that makes the mad scientist scenario so unlikely: the creature's terrifying, unforgettable face. Described by the witness as being nothing less than demonic in appearance, it had skin that was akin to weathered, battered brown leather. Its eyes were large, staring, evil-looking and watery. The only noise it ever made was a malevolent hissing sound that, hardly surprising, sent chills throughout Hank's entire body. Whatever the true nature of the monster that stood before Hanks, didn't belong to this world. Number 4. The winged creature in Minnesota. In January 2016, Nick Redfern, writer, journalist, and keen on stories about UFOs, alien encounters, and mysteries in general, published an article on the blog Mysterious Universe in which he narrated one of his many experiences related to the world of the supernatural. In September 2009, Nick spent approximately a week in and around the town of Winona, Minnesota, and portions of nearby Wisconsin, with a team from the History Channel's popular cryptozoology-themed series, Monster Quest. They were there to investigate reports of large winged beasts that, in some respects, sounded not unlike the infamous Mothman of Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Others, however, were far more of a giant bird-like nature, and several even seemed like a bizarre combination. Being there for a week gave them a very good opportunity to dig deeply into some of the sightings, to gain the confidence and trust of the locals, and to see what they could uncover. One of the stories uncovered revolved around a Winona woman who, back in the 1960s, saw a large winged humanoid creature standing on a rooftop on the edge of town. Its wings were bat-like, black in color, and spread wide. Its red eyes stared malevolently at her as she watched it from the yard of her house, which was directly next door to the house atop which the man-beast stood. A few minutes later, the beast took to the skies in incredibly fast fashion, but it didn't take off by flapping its wings, as one might assume or expect. No, it simply spread its wings widely and rose vertically, disappearing completely. Curiously, some years later, the woman watched the 2000 movie Jeepers Creepers and told her family that the thing she saw decades earlier was practically identical in appearance. Number 3. A giant eagle. Then, there was the story that came from the employees of a restaurant in town. Several of the long-term staff remembered how, a few years earlier, between 2005 or 2006, a truck driver had come into the restaurant in what was clearly a shaken state. As they crowded around him, the driver claimed to have seen a giant eagle soaring up to one of the highest peaks in the city and emitting a series of very loud screeches. Most odd of all, the truck driver said that although there were more than a few other people on the road at the time in question, and the sighting occurred during broad daylight, no one else seemed to see the massive beast. It was as if it manifested for him, and for him alone. Thereafter, the list of encounters describing such a creature went on and on. Number 2. The Old Man. Many of you already know the story of the Mothman, a winged creature that terrorized the town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, between 1966 and 1967. But did you know that the United Kingdom also has its own version of this mysterious creature? Yes, we still have a lot to discover. It seems that the dense trees surrounding Monaghan Old Church, Cornwall, England, became a veritable magnet for a diabolical beast that was christened the Old Man. The majority of those that crossed paths with the creature asserted that it was human-like in both size and design and possessed a pair of large wings, fiery red eyes, claws, and exuded an atmosphere of menace. No wonder people make parallels with Mothman. It all began during the week of Easter 1976, when two young girls, June and Vicky Melling, had an encounter of a truly nightmarish kind in Monaghan Woods. The girls went on holiday with their parents when they saw a gigantic, feathery birdman hovering over the 13th century church. That year, two 14-year-old girls, Sally Chapman and Barbara Perry, also had the misfortune to have a run-in with the Old Man at around 10 p.m. while camping in the woods of Monaghan, and as they sat outside of their tent making a pot of tea, the pair heard a strange hissing noise. On looking around, they saw the infernal Old Man staring in their direction from a distance of about 60 feet. At first, they thought that it was someone dressed up, playing a joke, trying to scare them. They even laughed at it, but suddenly, it went up in the air and disappeared in the sky. Sightings of the Old Man still occasionally surface, but not on the scale of those events that terrified people in Cornwall in the summer of 1976. Number 1. The Winged Alligator. Our last stop is in Tombstone, Arizona, a town well known in the United States for having witnessed a major armed confrontation between outlaws and law enforcement officials in 1881, a confrontation known as the OK Corral gunfight. 9 years after the incident, the Tombstone Press began writing about something far more terrifying, a threat that, in this case, was not human, but animal. Cattleman Ezekiel Barrison and Sam Dawson had been working together for nearly 20 years in this part of Arizona. They had survived everything from cattle stampedes to a rattlesnake bite. They were two cowboys who had seen it all in the Old West, and it took something truly unbelievable to produce even the slightest hint of surprise in them. But amazingly, that day came. While returning home, Ezekiel and Sam encountered something that was totally beyond their understanding. Some sort of giant winged alligator that apparently seemed to attack them and included them in its menu. After opening fire on the beast, the two men regained enough courage to pursue it and attempted to hunt it down. Or at least, that's what the local newspaper, the Tombstone Epitaph, wrote in its pages in 1990. A winged monster, similar to a giant alligator with an extremely long tail and a pair of wings, has been found in the desert by two ranchers. After losing their horses, Ezekiel and Sam decided to go in search of the animal and finish it off. It was then that they realized that they had in front of them a creature of approximately 28 meters long, with a pair of enormous wings of more than 20 meters, a head of about 2.5 meters, and a mouth full of strong and sharp teeth. However, during the hunt, there was one casualty, Sam, who died trying to flee from the creature. It was then that Ezekiel took courage and managed to avenge the death of his friend, managing to deliver a fatal shot to the beast and taking a piece of it as a proof of this. Sometime later, an expedition set out in search of the beast to recover its lifeless body and examine its nature. There are many who claim to have had chilling encounters with creatures that are not of this world, such as reptilian beings. Do you want to know more about these stories? If so, check out our next video.